Hopefully you can hear. No microphone. Yeah, I don't need one. All right. Hey, let me jump in here. I'm talking about soul care in this session. And let me tell you what that is. Yeah, just give you a little background. I have been in, so probably about 8 years ago, we had a death at the church. And anybody, how many ministers do I have here? How many? Okay, all right. And so you've been around death. So we had a death at our church, and I was at the hospital with a girl, a teenage girl and her family, and she died there. And it just so happened she was the same age as my daughter, and just was really traumatic, really traumatic. And so in the next elders meeting, we were talking about it, and it hit me really hard. Just caught me off guard, and I was really struggling with it. And so the conversation came up about the importance of taking care of yourself, and having somebody you can talk stuff through with. And so at that point, a minister named Arron, some of y'all know Arron. I don't know if he was a preacher for many years at a large church out in Colorado. He was starting a ministry to ministers called Covenant Groups, and it was set up by the Blessing Ranch, which is now located in the Tampa area. And he was looking for to see if I wanted to be a part of it. So I ended up joining a Covenant Group with Alan Algram, and they're still going today. There's still Covenant Groups happening. You can sign up for them if you're a minister. And so it was me and a minister named Greg Marksberry, which I know he knows, and Rick Grover and some other. Anyway, there were 5 of us all together, including Alan. And we met for 3 years. We met every month over Zoom or a conference call. And then we met twice a year for a week. And we did soul care. And so I actually went through 3 years of that, and then re-upped and joined another group, which just finished. We just had our last meeting last month. And in that experience, I found the importance of taking care of ourselves. When we share only our successes, we become competitors. But when we share our struggles, we become brothers. And I became brothers with these other ministers. And just always having somebody who was, you can have real conversations with and talk through life with. And I was so moved by that experience that 4 years ago, another minister in town, in the town I serve in Greeley, Colorado, Angel Flores, we launched a group ourselves, which is now a network of churches. There's probably about 80 churches altogether that are in it. And we have every Wednesday, we get on Zoom, and for an hour and a half, we talk about, with ministers from all over the country, we talk about soul care, coaching, and collaboration. And we've had guys say those conversations have saved their ministries and their marriages. It's just, it's really important that we take care of our souls. And as men, it's not something that maybe you were taught to value. That we gotta take care of everybody else, and we've gotta make the sacrifices for everybody else, and it's not maybe the way you're raised. Maybe it's a sign of weakness to ask for help. But I have learned the importance of taking care of our soul, and the importance of doing life with other men and having them pour into you. It is so crucial. It is so crucial that you and I have somebody we can talk to. Somebody we can talk to. It's and somebody who we can be real with, and make sure that we're not carrying the load all by ourselves. I asked some people in my church what's some of the most effective things they're doing to care for themselves. One school principal said, learning to say no and not feel guilty about it. A mom said she cares for herself by drinking coffee or by blasting worship music. One of the guys in our church who's a large man, he's very muscular. He says what he does to take care of himself is gym. He goes to the gym. One minister wrote and said he likes to jog and listen to sermons and podcast and pray. A lady in our church, Laura, said she likes to take a nap, which I think is a very divine thing. It's very important to take naps. And one other minister said it's important to say no to people every once in a while. Maybe that's where we should start. Maybe when it comes to taking care of ourselves, it's just saying no. Y'all remember that anti-drug campaign? Heck, years and years ago, just say no. Yeah, just say no. I remember it was everywhere. I remember one time being in the restroom, and in the urinal, there was a little sign there in the urinal that said, just say no. And I thought, does that work? Like, there's some guy in there like, I was going to use drugs, but I was just in the bathroom, and I saw in the urinal this little dot thing that said, just say no. And I'm going to say no to drugs. There you go. So, I don't know. Maybe it does work. But here's the thing. It's really important that we need to say no. It's honestly was one of our first words that we would, one of the first things probably most of us said is no. And so I want you to practice, all right? So I'm going to count to 3 and you're going to say no. Ready? All right, 1, 2, 3.
No.
Yes. All right, yes, you said no. Because that's what it takes. To take care of our soul, we got to push back from the table. We got to stop and we got to reorder things and make sure that we are saying no to the wrong things so we can say yes to the right things. All right? Hold on a second here. I want to write something up to myself. Okay. So I was thinking about some of the things we probably should start by saying no to. This is what I wanted to write. There we go. It came to me. Okay, I thought about some of the things we should say no to, starting off. Unsweet tea. We should say no to unsweet tea. Life's too short. We should say no to hairless cats. There's a thing called a hairless cat. And cats are evil. We should say no to that stupid thing people pass around on social media that says that Jesus is going to bless you if you forward this to 5,000 people. God said no. God said no to stuff. And I think we forget that because it's so easy not to notice. For example, in Genesis 2:2, we read this, and on the seventh day God finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all the work that he had done. Was there more that he could do? Obviously, of course. But what did God do? God rested. He said no to work, to say yes to rest. And my feeling is, I'm probably not too far off by saying some of y'all need to do that. Some of you need to say no to work so you can say yes to rest. And what would that look like in some of y'all's lives, some of our lives? Well, take your breaks. If you get a break, take it. Take your day off. It's a matter of self-control to take your days off. I get a chance to accomplish a lot of things. I'm a minister at a church, and before COVID, we were running about 1,000 or 1,100 people, and a staff of 12 people. I got a lead. I'm the head track coach for our local public high school. I've been doing that for 7 years, and I coach cross country at the same high school. We've won back-to-back state championships. So every day, pretty much year-round, I leave the office at 3:30, and I'm at the track. And then my days off, I'm at meets. Been blessed to be able to coach my own kids, which has been a nice thing. But our church is really committed to being involved with the community. I write books. The guy over here and I are making a movie, and it's actually going to happen, which is pretty exciting. I wrote a screenplay and do that. I do marriage coaching. I work with about 6 couples a week doing marriage coaching, and now I'm doing some business coaching. I was in Portland a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to be in Pennsylvania in 2 weeks doing coaching. And every once in a while people say, how do you get everything done? So I take my days off. I take my days off. Like I have no problem taking my days off. And I make sure I say no to work so I can say yes to other things and resting. And so I want to encourage you, take your days off, take your vacation. It's always interesting to me how many men in my church haven't taken a vacation in a long time. I honestly, if I'm being completely honest with you, if my staff, we had a guy on our staff who was proud of the fact that he wasn't taking a vacation. And I told him, if you keep that up, I'm going to have to let you go. Because if you don't have enough self-control to take your vacation, then I don't know how much self-control you have to do what God's calling you to do here. Like, it's real important that we take a break. And now your vacation may not look like other people's vacations, but it's important to take our breaks. God rested. Who do you think we are if we don't take your break? And by the way, if you're a part of a church leadership, you need to make sure your minister's taking a break and taking their vacation. You got something to say, Del?
Yeah.
This guy right here, by the way, is one of my elders. He was one of my elders for many years in Colorado, and now he's just a friend.
Yeah, just a friend. Arron, when Arron came, it was evident that he was a writer, and there was other things that in his life that he required more than just preaching to us every Sunday. And so I was an elder then.
Multiple services. Your preacher is like my dad was a preacher, and he would preach twice a week. But we were having 4 services, so if you had how many times I was preaching twice as much as my dad preached for years and years and years, and that gets old. It gets tiring for the preacher, and it gets tiring for the congregation. So it's real important that I wanted to say that if you're here and you love your minister, pull them aside some days and say, hey, are you taking your days off? You taking a break? Because you need to make sure you take care of yourself, because life is a marathon, not a sprint. So take your breaks, your day off, your vacation, take a nap. On Sunday afternoons, since we have a full day, on Sunday afternoons, I will eat a big old lunch, and I'll turn on NASCAR, and I'll take a nap. Yeah, man. Yeah, I McDowell won Daytona, by the way. McDowell, I just lost his first name. Hey, what?
Josh?
No, I'm talking NASCAR, not Jesus. McDowell. Anyway, McDowell won Daytona. He's a really strong believer, and if it matters to you, he actually goes to a Christian church too. If you don't like NASCAR, he's somebody you can root for. He's doing great. He's had like 3 top 10 finishes in the past since Daytona. All right, but take a nap. So what I'll do on Sunday afternoon is I'll turn my phone off. Like if somebody needs me, they can find me. I'll turn my phone off and I'll sleep for a couple hours and I'm good to go. That's the only day of the week I'll get a nap typically, but take your breaks. Okay, let me say one other thing too, since I'm talking about ministers, because we got some ministers here, and people who hopefully love your minister. One thing you can think about doing is a sabbatical. We give our ministers every 7 years. Every full-time minister gets a sabbatical, and this may be a foreign concept to you, but it's they get a week for every year that they've been there at the church. So I was there 11 years before I took my first sabbatical because we started it, and I ended up taking 10 weeks, and just a way to decompress and get away. And you don't fire your minister when he's on sabbatical. You let him it's a break. But it's a very intentional way of honoring. So some of y'all may have ministers been there for decades and never had a break. Maybe pray about and think about giving them a sabbatical. It doesn't have to be, you can say 7 weeks. And they, but what it's for is for whatever they want to do. Whatever they want to do, get away. I know one minister, his church paid for him to go before COVID over to London and take his family over there and spend 7 weeks in London. And he studied, and some ministers will write a book. I don't encourage that. I encourage just do whatever you want to do and relax. But that's something that a lot. If your church is interested in that, I can give you some more information on that. And for me, it was a game changer to get a sabbatical. I've been in ministry at that point for about 23 years in different churches, and it was I'll tell you some stories real quick. So, and you may lose respect for me when you hear this, but it is what it is. So so on my sabbatical, I wanted to travel around, and it started off by meeting with somebody I wanted to meet with. There's a guy named Leonard Sweet, who's an author, and I flew to Orcas Island and met with him. Orcas Island is in the Northwest. It's an incredible place. He has a house out there, and I spent a couple days with him. My wife was with me, and but I spent the rest of my sabbatical just traveling. And each trip I took a different combination of my kids and my wife. The boys and I went someplace, the girls and I went someplace, my wife and I went someplace, I went by myself someplace. So I was about 3 weeks into the sabbatical, and I'm sitting on a beach in Southern California. Our worship minister's grandma has a house in Newport Beach. And so I'm there at the beach house, and I'm 3 weeks into my sabbatical. And I've been praying, I've been going to different churches and seeing how they do things. And I'm sitting there on the beach with my Bible, and I realized, I'm just telling you, I realized I hadn't read my Bible once for devotions in 3 weeks. And I take it with me everywhere. So I'm sitting there on this beach in Southern California thinking, why am I not reading my Bible? Like I should be reading through it. And then it dawned on me that I had read already a novel in 3 weeks. Because that's what you do when you're on vacation, you read stuff like that, right? And so I was sitting on the beach. I wrote 2 words down in my journal. I wrote down the word vacational, and I wrote down vocational. And I realized that for over 20 years, I picked up the Bible all the time. And most of the time it was to write lessons, or to write a sermon, or to help somebody with counseling, or to prepare a Sunday school lesson. It was vocational work. And it felt like work to pick my Bible up. So I had my Bible with me, and I remember looking at it thinking, it's just like I've been using it like a textbook. I was doing vocational reading. And I decided I want to start reading the Bible vacationally. So I just started opening it up and saying, that's interesting, or just too many complicated names, I'm going to read something else. And what I did was, when I got back into town, I picked up my ESV study Bible, and that was with me the rest of my sabbatical for the next 7 weeks. And I finished reading through the entire Bible the rest of the time because I was reading it just for fun. Just like, oh, what's this say? I want to go over here. Oh, and look at the cross references to the footnote. I want to study baptism. I want to study this. It was just so much fun. And it hasn't stopped. It hasn't stopped. It's a mindset. But that happened in my sabbatical. Okay. When it comes to resting, let me just give you some things to think about. All right, when you're on vacation, do you check your email? When you come to a stop when you're driving, do you always reach for your phone when you know you're going to be at a stoplight for a second? These are not good signs. All right. Do you text other people while other people are trying to speak with you? That's annoying. Bob Russell, you guys have heard about him, right? I'm joking. Yeah, Bob Russell. I had a chance to spend a week with him for mentoring, and he said a lot of important things. One of the things he said that stuck with me was, he said he was in the lobby of his church one Sunday early on in his ministry, and this little old lady was trying to talk to him, and he's looking around, looking over her head. A lot of people want to talk to him. So he's got this little old lady who wants to talk to him in front of him, and he's just looking around, He said she grabbed his necktie, and she pulled him down. And he was down like this, and she said, "Look at me when I'm talking to you." And I've seen him since then in social situations, and you will sometimes see him lean down to talk to somebody. He said he's never forgotten that. He said he always imagines that the person he's talking to has him by the necktie. And I'll do the same thing now. I every single Sunday, there's little old ladies that want to talk, and I will literally lean down and talk to them. And I thought that was so revolutionary. Yeah. But some people, it's a thing where people are rude, like, they're on their phone when you're trying to talk to them. Does the idea of having a day where you have nothing going on, nothing to do, does that make you nervous? Some of y'all may be honest, it may make you nervous. Is work important? Absolutely work's important, guys. The Apostle Paul said this about work. My tongue is not working. 2 Thessalonians 3:10. For even when we were with you, we gave you this rule. The one who is unwilling to work shall not eat. It's so important that we work, but it is also important we rest. God rested. Here's another thing I want you to say no to, okay? All right? First of all, I want you to say no to work on a regular basis, if you're taking notes. Second thing I want to say is this. I want you to say no, all right? I'll explain this one too. I want you to say no to being everyone's Messiah. So you can say yes to being your old, just messy self. Some ministers, some men, people have what's called a Messiah complex. And they have a hard time not trying to fix every single problem. Say no to being everyone's Messiah, so you can say yes to being your old messy self. Jesus is a great example of what I'm talking about right here. Now this passage of scripture for me, I'm going to spend a little time camped out here because it's really, really important. In Mark chapter 1, verses 35 and 38, we read this. Well, actually, I want to set the context for you because it's really important. This right here is a Bible. I want to read something to you quick here, okay? So, there we are. So we read this in Mark chapter 1, just before the passage I'm going to read now. Verse 32, Mark 1:32. That evening at sundown, they brought to him, that's Jesus, they brought to him all who were sick, it's a lot of sick people, or oppressed by demons. So they brought all these people who were oppressed by demons, and the whole city was gathered together at the door. It's a lot of people, right? And he healed many who were sick with various diseases, and cast out many demons, and he would not permit the demons to speak, because they knew him. And rising very early in the morning, while it was still dark, he departed and went out to a desolate place, and there he prayed. And Simon and those who were with him searched for him, and they found him and said to him, "Everyone's looking for you." And Jesus said to them, "Let us go on to the next towns, that I may preach there also, for that is why I came out." And he went throughout all Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and casting out demons. Okay, I want to camp out here because this is Jesus saying no. Now, Jesus retreated a lot through his ministry. In Luke 5:16, we read, "But he, Jesus, often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." And just in the book of Mark, you can find Jesus retreating about 13 times. Was Jesus not doing his job? Of course he was. Of course he was doing his job. Weren't there people who needed healing? Absolutely there were people who needed healing. Wasn't he the Messiah? Yes, he was absolutely the Messiah. But Jesus was wise enough to know the importance of saying no to being someone's Messiah now, so he could say yes to being their Messiah when they really needed it. Let me give you some perspective here, okay? First is this. Not every crisis is your responsibility to fix. Not every crisis is your responsibility to fix. We do this thing sometimes where with our kids where we redeem them too early. Like, one of the best things I did as a parent was allow my kids to feel the consequences of their choices and not redeem them too quickly. Now, we would go in and I'd punish them and I'd send them to the room, and then I'd go in about 20 minutes later and I'd redeem them. I'd say, "You know why I punished you? Because you're my kid. God gave you to me. It's my job to take care of raising you. And I don't want to raise a jerk." And I would say, "You know, one of the reasons I punish you is because I love you." All right? And we're good. And then they'd go back to playing. Well, sometimes as adults, when it comes to family members, when it comes to situations at church, we act like we just got to go in and fix it. And we forget the importance that can come through difficulty, the lessons that can be learned through difficulty. But not every crisis is your responsibility to fix. If you're a minister, some things the elders need to handle. Some things people need to handle themselves. But what I found is if we wrap the ministry around us, we're setting unrealistic expectations for ourselves and for our people, and that's not sustainable. Another truth is this: is that you're not Jesus. We're not Jesus. We can only control what we can control. We can only control what we can control. And another thing I want to point out is it doesn't end very well for messiahs. If we're going to have a messiah complex, we're setting ourselves up to be crucified. And now some of y'all, you may be ministers who are the only person on staff, and that's a hard situation. But even so, it's really important that you not try to fix every single problem, and you allow room for God to do His work. I'd say it's best to let Jesus run the world. Another thing I want to say is this, is we need to say no, third thing, we need to say no to the urgent so we can say yes to the important. In this situation with Jesus and His disciples, it's such a real moment. He's doing all this work, okay? He's here doing all this work, healing people, casting out demons. He goes off by himself to pray. He's God in the flesh. But even Jesus understood the importance of spending time with God and in that one-on-one time. So what I'll do is just on a side note, is I'm obsessed with journaling. So I got this journal here, and every day I'll sit down and just journal whatever's on my mind. I'll journal prayer requests, and but it's my way of spending time with the Lord, of saying no to the urgent, so I can say yes to the important. But in a scene, what's happening here? Jesus is off, so he's busy, right? Really busy. He takes some time by himself, where he's connecting with the Father, and then his disciples come to him, and they say, "Everyone's looking for you." And some of y'all may really relate to that. Maybe you're a boss, and when you walk in, like, "Oh, we've been waiting for you to get here. This is falling apart. This is falling apart. This is falling apart." Or maybe that's what it's like for you at home, or some other aspect of your life. I want to point out something that's really interesting in this situation. The disciples come to him, they say, "Everyone's looking for you," right? Where had Jesus been? Jesus had been here, healing people, casting out demons. So you can infer what they're saying is, "Everyone here's looking for you. Come back. Come back." What does Jesus do? Because Jesus has said no and stepped away and connected with the Father, he has a clear sense of what is important. And he says, "Let's go to the next towns, so I can go preach there also." It's a really subtle thing that we sometimes miss, is that Jesus doesn't let the other people set his agenda. And sometimes we let other people who the critics, those who are critical of what you're doing, we'll let them set the agenda. And it's crucial that we allow God to set the agenda. And the only way we're going to be keenly aware of what God wants us to do is by spending time in His Word and spending time connecting with Him through prayer. But we need to say no to the urgent so we can say yes to the important. I love this event in Luke chapter 10, verses 38 and following. Luke 10, 38 and following. "Now as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving, and she went up to him and said, 'Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me.' But the Lord answered her, 'Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her.' Now Martha was busy with the urgent, getting things prepared, making sure everybody was ready to be served, making sure everything was cleaned up. But she was also busy being a tattletale. 'Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her to help me.' Sisters never change. Sisters never change, right? I have two grown sisters. It's the same thing. Here's what Martha was really saying. Martha was really saying, Mary is not being fair. Jesus, this is not fair. She's not carrying her weight. I'm carrying this church. If it wasn't for me, the programming of this church would fall apart. You better start appreciating me, or this church volunteer is out of here." In reality, we understand that Mary was anxious and worried about stuff that didn't matter. What about you? Are you losing sleep over stuff that doesn't really matter? In the moment, what Martha was doing, was it really important? No, it was urgent, but it was not important. In that moment, Mary was doing what was more important. What was she doing? Well, she was sitting at the Lord's feet and listening to his teaching. Here's a great principle. Being with Jesus is a lot better than doing for Jesus. Being with Jesus is a lot more important than doing for Jesus. And here's the thing. I have found in my own life, it is a lot easier for me to serve Jesus than to love Jesus. It's a lot easier for me to serve Jesus than to want to spend time with him and build a relationship with him. You can be busy, okay, so hey, we need help moving these chairs. You guys would step up and have these chairs moved and put away, right? What if instead the challenge was, hey, I need you to sit there for a little bit and get your Bible, and we just spend some time in prayer. And instead of spending 15 minutes moving chairs, we're going to spend 15 minutes just focused on the Lord and see if there's anything he wants to teach you through a passage of Scripture just right now. That makes you uncomfortable. You're like, no, I'd rather move chairs. You get people who will volunteer to unpack the church and move things in the church. And that's all well and good. It has to happen. But are you spending time like Mary to commune with Jesus? And I know you may be thinking this is the most silly or sissified thing you've ever heard. But you're wrong. It's so important that we follow Christ's example and spend time with the Father and follow his example and like Mary, to sit at the feet of Jesus. Because here's another thing that's true. Listening to Jesus is a lot better than talking to Jesus. Listening to what the Lord has to say to you. Talking's easy. Like we can talk. But when's the last time you sat and said, Lord, what is it you want me to hear? I'm not talking about hearing an audible voice, but it's like, Lord, what do you want me to hear? What do you want me to know? What do you want me to do? I need your help. I can't lead this family without you. I can't lead this church without you. I can't lead this business without you. Martha was so busy talking to Jesus that she wasn't hearing what he was trying to say. How do we discern what is urgent and what is important? Let me give you some filters you can use, all right? That you can use to figure out what is important as to what is urgent. First of all, what are your priorities? If you haven't established your priorities, you need to do so soon. My priorities are to go to heaven and take as many people with me as possible. One of my priorities is that my kids, when I'm dead, will say, my dad was the same guy at home that you saw in the pulpit. My priorities is I want to matter for Jesus. I want to live a life that matters for Christ. What are your priorities? And why is that? Why that's important is because that'll help you to determine what's important. One of the reasons I coach track is because for the past